After losing most of his family, this boy set out to create a fashion empire. The Hermès story begins with the founder, Thierry Hermès. Thierry was born on January 10, 1801, in Krefeld, just outside of Düsseldorf. His mom was German, and his dad was a French immigrant. They worked as innkeepers and had 6 kids, with Thierry being the youngest. 2 years after Thierry's birth, the Napoleonic Wars erupted. Several of his family members became casualties, and as if that wasn't bad enough, several others died due to disease. After these tragic losses, the Hermès family moved from Krefeld to Paris in 1928. They settled in Pont-Audemer in the north of Paris, and this is where the 27-year-old Thierry first learned the trade of leather making. 3 years after the family's move, Thierry and his wife, Pétronille Perriand, welcomed their first son into the world, Charles-Émile Hermès. He would eventually become the heir to the Hermès Empire, but first, that empire still had to be established. While Thierry's childhood was anything but easy, it also instilled in him an unwavering ambition. In 1883, he established his first workshop at the age of 36. The store was located on the now defunct Rue Basse du Rempart in Paris. He aimed to create the highest quality harnesses and brittles for his private clientele, which mostly consisted of French noblemen and carriage businesses. From the very beginning, Thierry understood and appreciated his customers' expectations. In a city full of innovative trends, they desired simplicity and lightness, so that's what he delivered. His harnesses were a hit, and creating them turned out to be a very profitable endeavor. They embodied discreet fitness as well as endurance, and this technical achievement of his would eventually be recognized with an award at the Universal Exhibition of 1867. But after some long decades of harness making, Thierry passed away in 1878 at the age of 77. Now his son Charles-Émile would have to take over. After his father's passing, Charles-Émile moved the workshops to 24 Faubourg Saint-Honore and opened a store. He began catering to the elite of Europe, Russia, North Africa, Asia, and the Americas. And it didn't take long for Hermès' excellent reputation to spread throughout the world. During his tenure, Charles-Émile took the brand to new heights, and he went on to design the famous Haut Courriers bag. The bag was intended to allow riders to carry their saddles with them, and it was a huge success. After nearly 3 decades, however, Charles-Émile felt it was time to pass on the torch to his sons, Adolphe and Émile Maurice. They renamed the company Hermès Frères, and together they continued to expand its notoriety on the global stage. While visiting Canada, Émile Maurice was introduced to an interesting new tool, the zipper. Seeing great potential for this neat little contraption, he brought it back to France and introduced a patent for the design. He became the first person to do so in France, and in the late 1910s, Hermès Frères designed the first clothing and handbags with the zipper included. News quickly spread throughout France, and the zipper became known as the Hermès zipper. After the success of the zipper, Émile Maurice brought the help of his sons-in-law, Robert Dumas Hermès, Jean-René Gourand, and Francis Puech, each with their own expertises and visions for the house. By 1914, Hermès was furnishing the Tsar of Russia with saddles, and the workshop employed up to 80 saddle craftsmen. But after a steep decline in sales of horse harnesses and equipment in 1919, Adolphe decided to leave the company with Émile Maurice buying his brother out. Then, in 1922, the first leather handbags were introduced after Émile Maurice's wife complained of not being able to find one she liked. The bag was essentially a smaller version of the Haut Courriers. Soon enough, Hermès branched out even further. In 1925, the first men's ready-to-wear garment was created, a golf jacket. To complement their customers' looks, Hermès introduced jewelry in 1927, followed by watches and sandals in 1928. One decade later, they introduced the silk scarf, which instantly became a huge hit with celebrities such as Jacqueline Kennedy. And not much later came the silk ties and perfumes. Every product was a massive hit, and it seemed like there was no stopping Hermès anymore. But then, Émile Maurice passed away. After the father of 4 daughters, Émile Hermès passed the torch to his sons-in-law. One of them, Robert Dumas, took over as head of the business in 1951. As the first non-descendant to take over the company, Robert had a lot to prove. But soon enough, it became clear that he was the perfect candidate for the job. Very early on, he created the now ubiquitous horse and carriage logo, and he was also responsible for many of the house's major successes, including the Champ d'Ancre bracelet and the famous Kelly bag. Designed by Robert Dumas in the 1930s, the history of this handbag took an unexpected turn in 1956, when the now iconic photograph of Hollywood actress turned Monaco princess, Grace Kelly, went viral. In it, Grace is seen carrying an Hermès sac et dépêches to cover her pregnant belly. The image was published on the front cover of Life magazine, and it soon became famous all around the world. It was the start of a success story. Suddenly, women were flooding to Hermès stores asking for the Kelly bag, and Hermès quickly renamed it the Kelly bag. This was the moment that catapulted Hermès out of the exclusive circles of global elites and into the public spotlight as the ultimate luxury house. The bag was an instant success, but 3 decades later, an even more special item would be created. But more on that in a bit. Through the 1960s and 1970s, Hermès continued to have commercial success, but then came a decline. While most of the luxury fashion had started using more man-made and technologically engineered materials, such as nylon, polyester, and vinyl, Hermès insisted on only using the highest quality natural materials. As these natural materials were of course much more expensive, this put them at a competitive disadvantage. The future suddenly seemed bleak for the Hermès house, and in 1978, the company changed hands once again. This time, the reins would be returned to the Hermès family. From 1978 onwards, Jean-Louis Dumas took over. As the son of Robert Dumas, the grandson of Émile Maurice Hermès, and the great-grandson of Thierry Hermès, it's safe to say that ambitious innovation ran in his family. Jean-Louis gradually revolutionized the house of Hermès. He diversified the brand and reinvigorated it for a new era. As the company was no longer a brother-owned business, he renamed it Hermès, and he fine-tuned the focus down to 3 essential product lines: ready-to-wear, silk scarves, and leather goods. Having seen just how influential the Kelly bag had been, Jean-Louis hoped to one day recreate that success, and in 1984, that opportunity finally came. It all began when Jean-Louis and English actress and singer Jane Birkin were on the same Air France flight from Paris to London. Jane was known for always carrying a wicker basket with her. She used it for everything, but when she tried to fit her famous basket in the overhead compartment, the lid came off and all of her things fell on the floor. She complained that she couldn't find a decent bag anywhere. That's when Jean-Louis introduced himself as the head of Hermès. Where Jane saw a problem, he saw an opportunity, and the pair spent the flight sketching different handbag designs on a napkin.
My father was, as she was talking, making sketches and notes. He was very good at making quick sketches.
While the bag wasn't very popular when it first launched, it slowly became a symbol of wealth and exclusivity due to its high price and long waiting lists.
It's $4,000.
I know.
And there's a waiting list.
I assumed.
5 years.
A Birkin is essentially a Veblen good. The bags are distributed on unpredictable schedules and in limited quantities, which creates artificial scarcity and exclusivity. They are a popular item among handbag collectors, and they were once seen as the rarest handbags in the world. Today, prices start at $11,000 for regular leather, and the more exclusive ones can set you back over $1 million. Many people consider a Birkin as an instrument of investment, and studies have shown that the annual return on a Birkin is around 14%. When you keep in mind that the S&P 500 has an average return of 8%, having a Birkin certainly sounds very, very interesting. Today, Hermès is one of the most sought-after luxury brands in the world. The fashion house is steeped in history and tradition, and its history is like few others in the world of high-end designer brands. It has been passed down through generations, and it has remained in family ownership for almost all its existence. Following the phenomenal success of the Birkin bag, Jean-Louis expanded Hermès' global business while also consolidating the already existing stores. And to allow more centralized control over its products, he made sure to decrease the number of franchised Hermès stores. In 2005, Jean-Louis announced that he was retiring, and he appointed his friend Patrick Thomas as CEO, and his son, Pierre-Alexis Dumas, as artistic director. Patrick Thomas ensured the smooth transition between the two generations until the appointment of Jean-Louis Dumas' nephew, Axel Dumas, in 2013. And under Pierre-Alexis's and Axel's direction, the firm has seen its biggest growth in decades. Hermès enjoys an iconic status in the world of luxury, and while it is not a conglomerate in the real sense of the word, and does not own a portfolio of brands like its competitors LVMH, Richemont, or Koenig, Hermès does have an enormous range of products, from leather goods, ready-to-wear, and saddlery to lifestyle accessories, furniture, fragrances, watches, and jewelry. I guess that's what happens when you have 6 generations of creative visionaries adding their 2 cents to the company. Had you already heard of the Hermès' long history? And what messages do you take away from it? Share it in the comments, and make sure to check out our channel if you would like to see more inspiring business videos.